And good evening. Welcome to the PASD Board Policy Committee for May 18th, 2026. Calling the meeting to order, and our first order of business is approval of the minutes from the April 20th meeting. Those minutes went out. Thank you, Ms. Cameron, for distributing those. Does anybody have any changes or edits, any comments or questions for those minutes? All right, seeing none, minutes are approved as read, and we're moving into discussion items. We have a really great presentation tonight for the high school. It's the end of year one for our electronic device policy implementation.
Good evening. Coming up to the podium is Dr. Shealy, Mr. DePasqua, and Mr. McAdams, who will report out our end of year presentation. You may recall our last one was in January, where we gave a semester one update about the implementation of the cell phone or electronic device policy, most specifically as it relates to cell phones. And Dr. Shealy.
I'm actually going to turn it over to Mr. DePasqua, who's really done a lot of the legwork compiling our data, and also with the implementation from last year till this year. A lot of that work was spearheaded by Mr. DePasqua. So without further ado.
Tag. Good evening. Thank you so much for having us back to talk a little bit more about the policy with cell phones in particular. Just keep talking. No, we're excited about where we're at with it. Overall, the cell phone policy, from our point of view, has been an overall success. It's not to say that there aren't places to improve and things that we need to do a little bit better moving forward. But when we look at the data and we kind of take a large look at how the school feels with the cell phone policy in place and with our electronic policy in place, it does feel different. It does feel better. I think last time I was up here, I highlighted how there were far less incidents involving cell phones and recordings of incidents or students using them to taunt each other in any type of way. And it really has made such a large difference. And just individually, my journey with cell phones, my opinion on whether they should be in the classroom has changed multiple times over the course of kind of looking into this. So it's been a really good experience for me. Coming into this role and kind of taking on my first bigger assignment. And it's really, I think, gone well as a team. I think it's been really good. So just a side note, we did compile this data on the 6th. So the time frame for the data that we pulled was shorter than the first semester. So keep that in mind as we're going through some of the information. So there's a lot of numbers on this slide, but this is the first semester versus the second semester in terms of total incidents per grade and then the enrollment involved with that. The first thing that I wanted to highlight and kind of jumped out to me in terms of data is that third infraction. If you take a look in the first semester, there were 33 times where students had a third infraction. That number jumped all the way down to 10 for the second semester, less than 6% of the total infractions. And it's kind of hard to see all the way at the bottom of that line, but less than 1% of students had 3 infractions for the second semester. That is the place where it jumps from in-school detention to an after-school detention. So that hour after school was really a big deterrent, I think, for some of the students once they figured it out in the second semester. And then also the 4th and 5th infractions just being so low, right? Like, and coming down overall from the first semester. So we're really proud of these numbers. Again, it's not to say that there aren't places we can improve, but I think the fact that it kind of stonewalled the students after their first or second time as a whole just kind of shows the success that we've had. The next slide shows the first semester incidents per grade and the first semester versus the second. You can see the total number of incidents for the first infraction of almost halved. And the numbers going down over the course of second to third to fourth and fifth or more. The total number of suspensions we issued, I think Mr. McAdams was less than 4 or 5 for the entire year. Yeah, for the entire year, and I think 2 of them involved the same student. So we're talking about 4 or 5 students out of 1,210, 1,220 students that struggled a little bit with the norm. But by and large, again, the data points to the idea that this has been really successful. Next is incidents per month. I think last time we highlighted in the first semester that December was a little bit rough. And what we're noticing is anytime there's a change in schedule, anytime there's a change in routine, anytime the weather changes with teenagers, as you know, things go a little bit haywire. They continued to improve in January, but then a few more in February. March was very similar, but then April dipped back down. Again, I think this time of year is tough in education in general. We have a lot going on up the high school with all of our end of year events. Seniors, as some of you may or may not know, a lot of them are out of the building as of last week. And so we're hoping to kind of get that number for May once we finally have it, in a good direction here heading into the end of the year. This was cell phone survey data that I think the board actually requested. I believe it's Ms. Venezia at one of the meetings was really interested, and I think this is really smart and important to discuss how it's kind of affected the focus of students, if at all, not having the cell phones on an everyday basis. And so these are just 3 of the questions that were on the survey. The first question there highlights kind of the increase in laptop issues over the course of the year, as opposed to the students having the cell phone. That they have 46% of the staff believe that there's been an increase in off-task behavior due to the fact that they don't have phones and they have their computers now. 75% agree that students are replacing off-task cell phone behavior with the laptops on the second one. And then the third one was one that we were really proud of overall with the new cell phone policy. Almost 70% of teachers believe that it's been much better. These are just some of the things in the written portion of the survey that we put out. There was some noted interest in an alternative placement for the phones as opposed to in the caddies. I'll be completely straightforward with you. The students are not using them as a whole. What they're doing is just putting their pockets in their bags, the off and the way approach. It puts teachers in a tough spot because they know that they're in their pockets. They know that they're in their bags, but do they want to lose class time and engage in power struggles over a phone that's not necessarily in the caddy, but it's not off and distracting the class? And it was just something I thought it would be important to bring up at this meeting today. Not totally unexpected. The second thing I wanted to address was the login notification process for the teachers. I'm not sure how many of you know this, but we have a teacher matrix and an administrative matrix at the high school. The cell phone policy is the only policy where it goes straight to a point where we have to log it into Q, our student information system. So this process for teachers, because of the way that we want to be able to look at the data in one place, is a lot more arduous for them. So the question came up, could we explore adding it to the teacher matrix first? I'm not sure how doable that is overall, but it is something that was noted a couple times in the survey, and I thought it'd be fair to bring it up to you as well. And then lastly, there is some noted interest in no phones at all throughout the day, more restrictive than the pseudo bell-to-bell that we have. And I know that there's a lot of talk, and we've discussed this several times, about the state potentially going to a bell-to-bell and what that looks like. And so that question might be moot. It just depends on what the state says and how we craft our policy around it. And then the challenge is the hallways are continuing to be kind of a thorn in our side in terms of reporting them from the hall monitors, because our teachers who are hall monitors at the time on their duty do not have access to those students. So it puts a lot of pressure on our Dean of Students, Ms. Azat, to have to log every single hallway infraction into Q as she goes throughout her day. And then as I had just said before, the use of the caddy, many students are opting to hide the phone as to when we put it in. There are teachers, we've done over 70 walkthroughs, I think, for the cell phones. And there are teachers who, when they notice us walk in, if they notice there's a couple not up that don't match the number of the students, they'll put them right up, and it's been really great. But there are teachers that don't want to waste educational minutes, having that conversation with students. And so just something to kind of bring up and discuss and have some discussion over. Action steps moving forward, again, just professional development at the beginning of the year, ironing out some of those areas. There's definitely some subgroups that we want to target in terms of being a little bit more consistent with following the cell phone policy, places in the building that aren't out in front and center where things seem to get caught a little bit more. But these are things that we can kind of talk about over the summer and craft some practices around to make them a little bit more efficient. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Can we ask a couple questions?
Yeah, sure.
So it looks like you had about 60-ish staff respond to your survey on the I'm looking at slide.
5.
Yep, that one. That seems like a much smaller number than when we were looking at this the first time. Do you feel like this is a representative sample?
I think I would. I mean, it's two-thirds of the teaching faculty right there. I think it's a pretty representative sample within all that. If there are any outlying statements on that would go on the extremes, I think we've probably already heard of them, and they've already been accounted for within
Okay,
these numbers.
so I'm concerned about 75% of them think that students are replacing off-task cell phone behavior with off-task laptop behavior. What's your plan for dealing with that?
Yeah, and that's certainly something that's of concern to us. So, I'm one of those people that's been in teaching long enough that when I first started teaching, I was intercepting notes that were being passed around. And then we got cell phones, and then it came to laptops. So, off-task behaviors on the part of students, on the part of teenagers, is something that we deal with. It just takes different forms. So a lot of what the work we do in the summer is analyze the data that we gather through the year. Like we keep a running list of our summer tasks, and that's one of the things that we want to address as far as what does that look like? Does that mean our teachers need more PD using our monitoring software? Does that mean that we need to give more education to the students as far as what's acceptable, what's not? So that is something that we are going to look at because it is of concern. It is of concern.
Okay, and did you get any feedback from parents or families as to how this is going?
That survey is scheduled to go out tomorrow.
Okay, so are we going to hear that?
Yes,
before
we can
the
report back
end
on
of the
that.
year?
Of course.
Excellent.
Of course.
And I'm wondering also, what is your recommendation in terms of changing the policy to have more strict, like you said, that there's tons of kids that are hiding their phones. Are you recommending we continue as we're doing, or that we look at some other structures in place?
I personally, just my personal opinion, I think the off and away all day works. I think it avoids the power struggle. I think the optimal option would be to have something like the Yonder pouches, which are just really, really expensive and maybe not a realistic thing for us to do. But I think from my point of view, that the putting them up on the wall and that 2-minute time period at the beginning and the end where they have access to them just creates potentially more problems than it's solving at this point. So I think the off and the way all day, similar to what the middle schoolers do with them in their backpacks, that way it kind of takes the guessing game out of it from the teacher's point of view.
Yeah, and there's really no gray area with that where there is with this. So it's funny because we do have the bell to bell, which means if you're in the hallway in the middle of class and you have a cell phone, that's a cell phone violation. But if you're in the hallway when you're going from class to class, that is not a cell phone violation. So that takes a lot of the gray area out. It also is a big ask of our teachers. We ask our teachers to do so many things, and that list just keeps getting longer and longer and longer. And, we're asking them to police something that's not provided by the school, that's not paid for by the school. And so to Noah's point, the off and away all day takes a lot of that out of it. So I never thought I'd be in this spot saying that, but yeah, that's kind of where we are.
I'm curious, given that, I still think year one, we're still in a transition phase with this. And I don't know that you have any recommendations, but have you had any discussion surrounding where you would obviously if a bell to bell comes in from a state as a state mandate, that's a whole different thing altogether. But how do you sort of see this, turning the ship ever so slowly, and how do you expect it to be in 5 years? Like, are you having that discussion now as to where we might be?
I think empirically what we saw was the ninth graders had a lot, they had an easier time adapting to the policy. And a lot of the pushback we got was from the seniors who were used to a different policy. So, my thoughts would be in following that reasoning is that the longer we do this, the more normal it is, the more it is the norm. And hopefully that's something that can carry on into out of high school. When you're at work, when you're out to dinner with friends, when you're at the dinner table with your family, that in class in college, yes, that will become the norm.
I believe at the last presentation, you guys mentioned that there were some issues with students who needed to use their devices for translation purposes. How have you addressed that, and how have you resolved that issue?
So the students themselves have kind of adjusted to that in terms of getting to their computers and where they need to be in their computers for the translation services as well. And we also, with the use of the iPads, we have a sign out system that we're going to craft a little bit more, I think, intentionally over the summer for different departments to sign out the iPads so that they can use them if they have a lesson that might be a little bit more translation needy, or a project that might be a little bit more independent for students where teachers can register to get those out on time. So those are the two things that I would say to that. I think the students' adjustment period was a little bit longer than we wanted, but I do think that over the course of the first semester and going through the first semester into the second, that they have done a really good job of addressing that. And our RL team is just so fantastic that they kind of adapt to whatever situation we give them. That they just have really done an amazing job with that.
Do we have the same, the teachers in the high school have the same monitoring capabilities of the laptops as they do? So when they're talking about the off task, they're like actually seeing it. Yep. Do we need to look at tightening some of those controls in terms of what's, we're going to probably talk a little bit later about some of the technology changes at a broader level, but should the high school be incorporated into some of those and looking at some of those updates and tightening controls?
Yeah, and that's, I think, what I touched on a little bit with the summer work. I'm really very much in support of these monitoring softwares, but it's new to our teachers as well. So we give them these tools and they need time to adapt. And I think we could do a better part as an administrative team in educating them in its uses and the practical applications of it. So yeah, I do think that's something that we need to do. Yes.
I'm just curious, in terms of the way that system works, obviously you can see what's going on all the different devices in the classroom, but can it identify, that's not what we're doing? Oh, it can, okay,
You can shut it down.
yeah.
Can I just say thank you? I know this is a huge task that we put on you, and we very much appreciate your work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Halloran, while we have our high school team here, I think it's only fitting to congratulate them on the graduation rate. I don't think we celebrate our successes enough. I really don't. And where we've come, over the past 5 years, where this high school team has come, Dr. Reuter too, who's not here obviously anymore, but I know the work and I just would like to acknowledge that. I know in the background they're working tirelessly with every student on that. So the staff and the administration for what they've done at the high school with our graduation rate, I do believe needs to be congratulated. We're still preliminary, but but I believe we're somewhere around 96.6.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's-
Well deserved.
But again, that's preliminary and it's not official. But congratulations to your team. And
Thank
I know
you.
how much work that you put into that.
I did want to say, if I may, to that, it really is a team effort, and there are so many people that work with our students, and it's not just, we have great educators, we have great teachers, but we also have people behind the scenes. Mr. McAdams is one of them. We've gone to people's workplaces and dragged them out and said, you need to finish your coursework. We've called people's homes, we've harassed them. We have teachers that work. Our EL department is fantastic. We have very dedicated, very caring and loving teachers who will spend the time to get students to the finish line. So even though most of the seniors were done on Friday, we had students in today, and we celebrate every single success, every student that gets that credit recovery done. It really is, it's a huge effort, but there are a lot of people, and Phoenixville is great for that. We have some of the most, if not the most top-notch educators who really, really do care about our kids. And I'm very proud to say that. So I do want to make sure everybody gets the credit that's due for that. But thank you for mentioning it.
And again, I know everything I say I have to watch, but I do believe we're somewhere around 96. So yeah, correct? Okay, thank you.
It is an incredible achievement and a testament to all of the hard work of the staff and the administration. So, and again, yeah, just as you've said, Dr. Scioli, these aren't just the kids in the building. These are kids spread out across the region, and to have an impact and to get some of those kids across the line is really wonderful. Thank you. Or any other questions around? Okay, seeing none, then we will move on, and thank you again. All right. With that, we'll move into approval items, and our first approval item is of the teacher formal observation protocol. Do you want to give us some background on that, Dr. Kumlitz?
Of course. So for the last 2 years, we have been working on a faculty growth and evaluation model that is compliant with PDE's Act 13 while still affording us some flexibility in terms of how we are providing feedback to our faculty and in different phases of the evaluation model. To that end, we had a committee that worked notably in the last couple of years in terms of providing some feedback on the old model, as well as some recommendations for a new model. So I'd like to thank the members of that committee, Kevin Butz, Lauren Clark, Jess Coulter, Kathy Costello, Joy Lamont, Nikki Salato, Shay Lapsley, Amber Lehman, Stephanie Mackerline, Jeannie McGee, Rebecca Morgan, and Elizabeth Rakoff for serving on that committee. They really spent a lot of time and put a lot of thought into their recommendations. We took those recommendations this year in coordination with our consultant, who is the founder of the Learning Loop, Miss Allie Rodman, who's with us here tonight. We took those recommendations and created our own model. And that model also incorporates the formal observation process that you see here tonight. That formal observation process includes a pre-observation reflection done by a faculty member. It includes the formal observation form, which are some additional components that are visible in the classroom that an administrator would assess and provide feedback on. And then it includes a post-observation reflection completed by the faculty member as part of the process. Those three things are just one component of the model that I discussed, but they are not they're not the formal observation process that PDE currently uses. Because of that, in order to move forward with this model, with the formal observation protocol, we would have to have that approved by the board and then by PDE. The good news is that this process, we have been assured, would move rather quickly because instead of using the old Danielson framework, which is what PDE currently uses, this is an updated framework created by the Charlotte Danielson Group that is updated to include a more of a focus on what the student behavior is in a particular lesson or classroom. It includes more evidence-based strategies and research based on what we currently know about student learning, and there's updated language throughout that protocol as well. So that updated formal observation framework is what you have attached here. And certainly both myself and Ms. Rodman can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board or from the committee?
Can you explain, I'm looking at the paragraph in here about the licensing agreement. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, Ms. Rodman can probably explain how that works much better than I can because she has this background. So I'm going to invite her to the podium. Thanks, Allie.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation to join you. In addition to my work as an independent consultant, I'm also a nationally certified framework specialist for the Danielson Group. So I have the ability to kind of move between those two different worlds. So typically when a school district chooses to use the Danielson framework as a part of their evaluation tool with schools, they would require that you engage in a licensing agreement with them since it is proprietary content. However, because Phoenixville Area School District is currently using the Frontline platform for teacher observation and evaluation purposes, Frontline has already paid that licensing agreement with the Danielson Group. So as long as you continue that contract or you continue a contract with another platform, that has an existing licensing agreement with the Danielson Group, there's no additional cost to you as a district. Where that licensing agreement typically comes in is if a school chooses to create their own platform to administer their observation and evaluation process. So for example, there are some districts that I partner with that do it exclusively through Google Docs and Google Forms. In that case, a district would be required to engage in that type of agreement.
Thank you for that
Yeah, absolutely.
clarification. Any other questions?
Does the union have to acquiesce to this change in the observation practice, and if not, did you discuss?
We
it?
did have union leadership that served on this committee, yes, and they had first look at the model prior to us putting it out to all faculty and staff.
And were they supportive of the change?
Our committee is very supportive, yes. These changes did incorporate feedback about our process, specifically about the growth opportunities and the feedback that were received throughout. Remember, we currently in our evaluation process have different phases of evaluation. This model has those same phases, just tweaked and modified to better incorporate people's feedback. So, for example, there's a peer observation phase that allows for and provides more guidance to faculty to observe other teachers in various settings, to learn from them, to collaborate together. That's an entire phase of the evaluation model. It's a year long for our faculty. That's something that they really requested they wanted to keep, but they wanted some tweaks made to it. The same with our action research phase, which provides, again, more of that collaborative opportunity for our faculty. You know, feedback shouldn't just come from our administrative team. They wanted to make sure that they had continued opportunities for working peer-to-peer as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that information. We're going to move into the second approval item, the approval of board docs as our board agenda software at a cost of $18,000 for the next year.
In our continued saga, we mentioned to you several weeks ago that we would be continuing with board docs. This is going to be a year-long agreement, as it had been in the past, that allows us also the possibility of switching over to the newest Diligent product, because remember, this is the same parent company. So it allows us the opportunity to switch over to the newest Diligent product mid-year if we so choose. So that's an option that we would be afforded if we continue with our current board docs product.
Yeah, and I'm just, if I can add, please, I know this had come up tonight, and one of the main, there were some options that were thrown out, and one, I know many years ago, the board did not use a platform. Part of the issue with that, and I did mention this, I believe, last meeting, is we house all of our old documents in board docs right now. So if we were to move to something that didn't have a platform, they would not have a house, all of those items. So that's one of the main reasons why we really do need to stay with a platform for now and continue to search for the best option for us. But at this point, this is the best option for us. That's what administration feels.
Ms. McDermott, can I just clarify, there were some security options.
That was not with board docs, that was the Keystone.
But that's the reason that you're recommending that we keep board docs. It's not just that we can't house them somewhere, that there's security concerns.
Correct. If you're comparing the two, the Keystone policy portal did not live up to the standards that we wanted for security. That's correct.
So you're talking about our specific policy documents versus like the agendas?
That's two separate, so we'll be using two separate, right now, we'll be using for our policy documents, that will be the PSBA portal. For the agendas, we will be remaining with board docs. Because the Keystone portal, if you remember, I talked about that last time, that was the part that was not secure. The policy piece is what we're using right now is PSBA for our policy. So I guess maybe where I confused you is we can still house are we going to still use the policy piece for this? Because I remember you asked that, Mr. Overland, and I believe we'll still have that option to do that correct?
I can address that. So Policy Portal, which is a separate platform outside of Board Docs. Currently, our policies are all housed within Board Docs. And so it's very easy to pull them up, to link to them, et cetera. It will be just as easy to see them in the agenda on Board Docs and to link to them, but it will take you to an outside platform, a platform outside of Board Docs called the PSBA Policy Portal. Remember, for PSBA Policy Portal, all policies are public. The drafts and the active policies are public. So there's no security features that we would need to worry about. And then that would enable us to keep Board Docs with that secure platform for all the other things that we do in terms of meeting agendas and the like. Does that answer your question?
It does. I just remain, Board Docs is not ever
Good.
impressed me. Yeah,
I don't think, we agree with you. It's
And-
just, what is the other option
right.
at this
I mean,
point?
the other option I think is and this isn't something I would want us to rush now, but we did for many years do this without a formal platform, and I think it's even easier and cheaper now to look at alternative storage options just within our website and framework. So again, it's not something that I want to rush
Sure.
right now, but I think with Mr. Oberrecker and his team looking at some options that could save us some money and I mean, I think I enjoyed it better when we just had PDF agendas and this.
Mr. Evelyn, I just want to point out, we did have some struggles with.
And I know. And again, I think we can look at options. And I know that there's not a ton in this space, but I just don't.
Is there anything else in this space besides Board Docs?
So Diligent's new product, we think is worth looking into. It will be about the same cost. We did preliminary work, Ms. Cameron did, to reach out to them about what those preliminary costs would look like. And it's around this same amount, but with added security features, with added levels of security within the platform, as well as the ADA compliance. So if you recall, the platform that we created was never ADA compliant. I can't speak to what the security measures would need to be with that, but it certainly wasn't ADA compliant, whereas the new version of Board Docs will be within the time. It's already that way now, and it will be, within the timeline for ADA compliance for this district.
But moving forward, are you looking at, we still have to have two separate systems, the PSBA system for policies and the?
You would still have to have two separate systems. We already had to pay a separate subscription fee to PSBA for the policy work that was happening in Board Docs. Now it's happening outside of Board Docs, but it's still that same subscription fee.
So it's not costing us any more?
The PSBA side is not costing us more, correct?
Thank you.
So, just so I know I asked some questions about this last time, but July 1st, we will not use Board Docs for public policy, draft, or active.
Yes, it is my intent to transition us in June. There is no way to do it sooner, unfortunately. So that work will need to occur towards the end of June. We have some trainings that will be taking place internally. Myself, Ms. Cameron, and Ms. Gray, who assists with policy work, will be doing those trainings in early June. And then we will start transitioning with PSBA. They will start transitioning all of our information policy-wise to their new policy portal by June 30th.
Okay, so by June 30th, we do expect policy to be new platform.
That is what we have been told. Yep. And I will
Okay.
keep you updated as I do that work this summer.
Okay, so basically it's the public agendas and it's the board packets is all we're potentially paying $18,000 for that. So the concern is not having that information public for the public, correct?
True, correct. As well as the logged information, as well as the various levels of security access that we have within Board Docs, which also includes that goal reporting.
Okay, so, I mean, to me, it still seems a bit silly. I know historically we have had issues with just having PDF documents, but I mean, to me, it feels like we're paying $18,000 for document storage, which I'm sure we already have other forms of it currently. And I mean, I hate every moment that I use board docs, and I think everyone does. But if the concern is not having this historical information, I mean, all of it can be exported to a PDF document.
Just a reminder that that's not ADA compliant, so we wouldn't be able to maintain it within that format.
But this, it isn't ADA compliant in the current board docs either.
Correct, but it will be, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Will-
with the
will be
newer
with
version of
new
board docs.
version.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't know. It still seems a lot for a little, basically. I don't like it. I don't know.
I
I think
personally,
that's why we're stuck, is what is our other option? I think we hear all of you, and we don't like board docs either. I hope you know
No one
that.
does, yeah.
And it's down half the time.
Yep.
So, but I also am afraid to lose the history or lose anything. Right now, that's why we're saying, yes, the 18,000, but give us a year and allow diligence to become what that's going to be. And also, I believe the Keystone Portal now, because the same complaints we're saying, so are all the other districts. So they're going to be working on that, on their portion also. The
Yeah.
ultimate goal would be to have one system, which is the PSBA system. And then there's one fee, which is the $20,000. This
Yeah.
$18,000 would go away. Our problem right now is we're not comfortable with that one system for the things that we've already talked about.
Right. No, I understand that. And what's the deadline for ADA?
For us, it's 2028 now.
It's now 2 years as
Yeah.
opposed to one.
Okay. So
We have 2 years.
plenty of time.
It's not 2027 for Phoenixville because of our size, because our overall population is under a certain amount. We have 2 more years.
Okay. So to reiterate again, I guess my thought here is, of course, we want it to be ADA compliant. It's not ADA compliant now. Exporting it to PDF documents isn't ADA compliant either. But I don't like them, but I know other school districts do just have them still today as PDF documents on the website. I mean, my proposal, not that anybody's asking for it, is we just export it to PDF document and we can jump on for the PSBA or maybe the new board docs when it comes out. But
that's not a long-term solution.
no, it's not. But we have until 2028 anyway. So to me, it just feels like it's not worth 18,000.
Two additional pieces of information that may be helpful as you make this decision. One is that we did do some due diligence, Ms. Cameron, in connecting with her colleagues across the region. And everyone, I believe, is staying with board docs for at least another year. So I just want to make sure that that everyone knows that, because they're concerned about all the same things we are. The other piece of information I forgot, and hopefully,
I was just going to say that, well, I personally, I live for board docs. It's my favorite part of the day. No, if I hear what you're saying, however, without actually having a plan in place for that, and the thought of having to click on a secured PDF because it's something that is for our eyes only, and having to put in a password every time. I mean, think of, we were in 2 committees and think how many PDFs we've had in those. I'm just, a platform takes that away, and I
think as we, it would be rushed for us to make a change at this point. I think what our instruction should be is that as we are going through this year, let's not just have it be a foregone conclusion that we're going to keep going with this, and see if there's a way to move back to an internal, more cost-effective way, or if the PSBA one comes up and we're confident in that, we can look at that. But I think we all agree that this feels like, unfortunately, kind of throwing away money at this point.
And given what Ms. Cameron discovered, that I'm sure that multiple school districts are leaning on PSBA to, like, all right, you want to push this platform out, fine, but it's got to meet our needs.
Okay. Thank you for the discussion. And as we move forward, we're going to move into our Policy News Network, our PNN section, and we've got two policies to review. Policy 610, purchases subject to bid and quotation, and Policy 611, which is kind of related with purchases budgeted.
Correct. The only two updates to these are in thresholds, monetary thresholds.
Very good. Any questions about either of those policies?
Only quickly, that is it by law? Okay.
Thank you for that question. Moving into informational items, we've got a number of policies to go through, starting with policy 122. It's an AR on extracurricular activities. There's actually a 4 in a row here that are related to our extracurriculars and the sort of taxonomy of all the groups.
Thank you. I like that term, Dr. Halloran. So 122 ARs as well as 122.1 ARs. Those, if you recall, we updated those policies, I think just a month or so ago, and these are our administrative regulations associated with that. Dr. Scioli and her team have reviewed them to ensure that they are feasible, because probably this will most notably apply to high school students' extracurriculars and non-curriculum extracurriculars.
Thank you for that. Any discussion around those ARs? If not, we're moving into policy 202, which is another AR on information to substantiate sworn statement by resident.
This is applicable in certain situations, notably when a resident of the district is housing a non-resident student, which does sometimes occur where there might be a family member who takes in a student who is not the direct parent or guardian. In this case, that this regulation standardizes that procedure.
Very well. Moving into policy 325, just a clarification around dress and grooming for employees.
Correct. This is for staff and just some, again, basic, pretty general guidelines for dress and grooming.
Very good. And last for informational items is policy 325 AR2 on identification badges.
In our effort to always be as safe as possible, this AR establishes procedures for wearing your ID badge. Really, we are requiring staff to wear that ID badge at all times when in the building. Staff and board members, thank you so much.
Thank you for that clarification, Dr. Kilmetz. All right. Any other questions about identification badges? Okay, seeing none, we have recognition of visitors. Visitors are welcome to speak for no more than 3 minutes. We have our first speaker, Alaire Southerton. Come on down. Get to do my Price is Right thing.
I'm bringing gifts this time.
All right.
Husband and then stole right back. This is 32 words for field, lost words of the Irish landscapes. Just the foreword. Languages are not just tools for communication, they are living expressions of thought and imagination. Each one is a unique prism through which the human spirit perceives and shapes reality. When a language dies, we do not merely lose a set of grammatical rules or vocabulary, we lose an entire cosmology, a way of sensing, relating to, and making meaning of the world. We lose poetry, memory, and particular genius for life. There are children right now sitting in classrooms learning how to make meaning of the world, beginning to shape their own realities. These children cannot afford for us and the board to drag our feet discussing policies and guardrails that will ultimately still put devices that are not safe for children into the hands of children. We cannot afford for them to continue accessing inappropriate content, become addicted to gamified learning apps, and experiment with ineffective ed tech apps that have not been qualitatively tested for educational merit in any way. We cannot wait for a multi-year process of investigating and reporting on data that many districts have already accepted as fact. A 2025 meta-analysis of 117 studies covering 292,000 children links excessive screen time to anxiety, attention difficulties, and behavioral problems. Why is this then better than the human connection between a student and a teacher who knows them? Research has connected high screen access to decreased functional brain connectivity in areas tied to attention and cognitive control. This is not just from personal one-to-one devices that will soon be tracked on dashboard for total screen time, but also on every big screen used in a classroom, which will not be counted in overall screen time on next year's tech dashboard. There is little independently verified evidence that gamified apps produce durable academic gains, yet we continue to use them. These are not fringe concerns, they are peer-reviewed, bipartisan findings, and they indicate that we cannot wait. Phoenixville budget has been discussed here at length, and it lives rent-free in my mind now. What I've learned about positions being split and where funds are being directed has really broken my heart. I've listened to speeches from members of the music program, which as far as I can tell is enriching the lives of the community while asking for very little in return, as they beg for basic support to continue to facilitate spaces where students feel safe and heard. On a larger scale, the US has spent $30 billion replacing textbooks with devices. The Economist concluded that, quote, ed tech is profitable, it is almost useless. It does not take an advanced degree to connect the dots. We are pouring money into contracts with ed tech companies in Silicon Valley that do not have our children's growth and development at heart, while simultaneously starving the programs right here that our students need the most.
30 seconds.
Phoenixville is in a position to lead, and we are not alone. LAUSD unanimously passed a resolution limiting screen time and banning devices during lunch and recess. Baltimore County, San Marcos, Simi Valley, and Fresno USD have all made huge adjustments to the use of devices in K-8 classrooms. Sweden reversed its entire national digital education strategy and returned to handbooks and handwriting. We do not need you to reinvent the wheel, but we do need you to get on the bus now before any more children are negatively impacted. What I have for you are a copy that I bought myself that you can pass around if you need to, The Digital Delusion. Dr. Jared Cooney-Horvath is a former teacher, current neuroscientist, and this was donated by Reeds and Company. It's a little damaged, but she said I could also share it with you. I have also put together 10 packets from 5 different school boards, all within the last year, who have updated their policies and their regulations around device use from K to 12. This was $70. I don't have that, but I do need you to take this seriously and read and educate yourselves about what other districts are doing as you're formulating your goals and your policies for next year.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Meredith Stradley.
You're welcome.
Good evening. My name is Meredith Stradley, and it's good to see you all again. I apologize in advance. I'm going to be speaking quickly, so please buckle up. I'm an East Pikeland Township resident. I'm the parent of a kindergartner at the Early Learning Center. I also have a younger child that will be entering the school district. Thank you in advance for your attention and consideration tonight. Last night, I watched a documentary called Listers, A Glimpse into Extreme Birdwatching. It follows 2 brothers who dive into competitive birdwatching, living in a van for a year while traveling across the country to participate in a Big Year contest. The winner of the Big Year contest is one who spots the greatest number of unique bird species in a single calendar year. As you can imagine, this contest gets quite competitive. People book last-minute plane tickets or drive 20 hours one way for the opportunity to catch a glimpse of a rare bird sighting. I bring this up because the documentary features a recurring expert by the name of Hannah. Hannah is an ornithologist, also known as a biologist that focuses on the study of birds. Repeatedly throughout the documentary, Hannah reveals her frustration with the Big Year contest by saying simply, "I have such conflicted feelings about it because it's not about the birds. It's about the game." Her comment sent alarm bells off in my head. It's not about the birds, it's about the game. Folks, EdTech and particularly gamified platforms are not about core learning. They're about the game. To put that differently, gamified apps do not teach our children language, math, social studies, art, music, or birds for that matter. Gamified apps only teach our children how to play a game. The only thing our kids are learning is how to accumulate points, badges, or trophies. Again, they're not learning They are learning how to play the game. On September 21st, 2013, Bill Gates stated, referring to educational technology, it would be great if it worked, but that we won't know for probably a decade. That was in 2013. Well, here we are. We are a decade plus into implementing educational technology into our public schools, and what do we have to show for ourselves? Well, according to the latest education scorecard released just last week, I quote, "The United States entered a learning recession in 2013. As student progress in math and reading stalled and achievement began to decline," end quote. Is this a coincidence? I think not. Let me be clear here. This is not a Phoenixville area school district problem. This is a nationwide problem. A vast number of school districts across the nation are grappling with these same issues, and several have already eliminated the one-to-one device model, put strict limits on screen time use, and allowed families to opt out altogether. PASD has a critical opportunity. We have the opportunity to do the right thing by our children and our community. As a district, we've spent, until this point, an exorbitant amount of money on devices and contracts with big tech. And to quote Dr. Pacito earlier tonight, jaw-dropping amounts of dollars are spent on these contracts. And as parents and taxpayers, we understand those are sunk costs. However, as elected officials, we as parents and taxpayers reasonably expect you to be rational decision makers. And according to rational decision-making theory, you must make decisions based on future costs and future benefits, not on past costs or sunk benefits. I beg of you, for the sake of our children, our tax dollars, and our greater community, do not fall victim to the sunk cost fallacy in which you make decisions based on past behavior or sunk costs. When we know better, we do better. With this in mind, I ask you to eliminate the one-to-one device model for all elementary school kids, eliminate use of YouTube and other screen use in all classrooms. I understand that this may take some time, and so until this can be effectively implemented, I urge you to allow families to opt out of one-to-one devices come this fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lisa Longo.
I just want to reinforce what you heard. I don't have to repeat a lot of what I was going to say because it was said so well. But I do want to recommend, in the past, when we've had big questions like this, we've convened a community group to come in and help us, community advisory committees. We've done this with the CBAC, which I'll talk about during the budget. We've done it for construction. I think we need to do it for technology. We need to bring in parents and experts. Let them help you craft this policy and get it done fast. Thanks.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Catherine Boyson.
Nice to see you. Hi, my name is Catherine Boyson. I live in Phoenixville. I see some of you as you walk your dog, and you see my children in the yard. My children are 3 and 6, so some of our earliest learners. One is in kindergarten, and the other is a year away from kindergarten. Here to encourage thoughtful, intentional, evidence-based use of electronic devices in the youngest classrooms. I think in 2026, it is no longer a defensible position to say that there are not negative impacts. The speakers before me spoke about them really eloquently. And how well documented it is, including some Silicon Valley executives, including Steve Jobs, who did not let his children use the products that his company created because of the impacts that they knew were part of it. Personally, I've been surprised by the amount my kindergartner uses his iPad. It's his math lesson. It's an indoor recess when we were inside for like 3 months this winter. That was an option. He's on it for this and that app. It's on the screen, as both of the speakers mentioned, it's on the screen for a YouTube video during snack. Instead of talking with their peers, they're watching a video. It seems pervasive in where it shows up without intentionality for the educational outcome. Just because something is available does not mean that if a company makes an app, it does not mean that it contributes to positive educational outcomes. Does not mean that the negative impacts or opportunity costs of learning that lesson a different way are accounted for. I don't want to see these devices in classrooms. If we can look at data on positive impacts, then I think we should look at that. But until we have that, I think we pull them out and bring them back because the negative impact is well documented. I don't want to see us doing this to kids. It's like they're a social experiment, and then we'll find out 10 years down the line what it did to them. In my child's case, he doesn't have screens other than in the classroom, but he's developing an addiction to an iPad because he has access to one in Phoenixville kindergarten in the past 9 months. He does not have access to screens otherwise, but he is talking about his YouTube videos that he gets at school. He's talking about his iPad, and he wants it at home because he's developing an addiction at an early age. I'm addicted to my phone. I wish I weren't, but it's impacting all of us. Can you imagine starting that at 6 and replacing all of the positive educational outcomes you could have had and interactions you could have had in place of an addiction to a device? So again, I don't think it's a defensible position to say that there are not negative impacts, and I don't want to see them in the classroom. And I would say now is the time to step onto the right side of this opportunity. So many other districts are making decisions that are intentional and thoughtful and evidence-based with their policies. And so I urge you to take a similar position. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is all for our public comment. I will just note that almost all of our commenters were under the wait till 8th heading or subgroup. How many members in that group right now?
260.
260, cool. Well, thank you.
Can I? My comments, I signed up for the general. It's more applicable to the current speakers. If you
Sure. Do you want to come up?
Thank you.
Just state your name and your municipality.
Thank you. My name's Greg Spotto. I am live in Phoenixville. I have a second grader in Phoenixville School District. So obviously a lot of passionate conversations around just device access and the curricula that comes with it. I'm speaking more to the actual devices themselves from my point of view. I am a professional working in defense contracting for Lockheed Martin, 28 years experience. I'm a program manager working on satellite systems for software development, all the way through system deployment. Simply put, iPads, Chromebooks, many of the devices that we have talked about even in the board meetings last month are platforms that are simply too insecure for us to operate in my job profession. I operate at the highest levels of security for our government and the things that we make. Never will a Chromebook or iPad ever be used because they are too insecure at the fundamental basis. They are designed for easy deployment of content and for data to be collected off of the users using that content. Because that is the core of their design, they are nearly impossible to secure from a standpoint of what comes in and what comes out. At this very board meeting last month, we talked about that sometimes when we are using our devices, it's a case of whack-a-mole for what we are trying to keep our our students to be able to see. That is whack-a-mole by design. It is impossible to secure these devices with the vast resources of our national government and my company, which does billions of dollars worth of work, from the limited resources that we'd have as a educational district. We will not have the resources to secure these devices to keep unintended content from coming to our children. It is fundamental in the way they have been designed from stem to stern. Their ubiquity amongst the community is part of that vulnerability. Everyone has an iPad, everyone has an iPhone, everyone has access to Chrome or a Chromebook. It is that ubiquity that makes it so easy for these things to become vulnerable, for security measures to be circumvented, no matter what the intentions are. So I really encourage us to just look at the uses of these devices. That game of whack-a-mole that we have talked about, when we lose it, it is at the cost of the innocence of our children that are in our district.
30 seconds.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weiser, you had a...
Yeah, I just had a quick question since it's come up again. Maybe this is more of a question for the board. When I think having some sort of community group to talk about this, or at least a discussion item in one of our board meetings is probably a good idea. But even for me, I'm a little frustrated because there was some questions last month that I still don't even have answers to. So my question is, when is the next time that we will focus on this subject and actually maybe not come to a conclusion or a decision right away, but have a substantial conversation about that? I guess that would be, Scott, for you as president or one of the chairs, I don't know, curriculum or policy, whatever makes more sense, but I think we need to talk about it. It ain't going away.
No, absolutely not. And it's one of the things I was going to talk about in the main board meeting during the president's report, but can also touch on now that I think we are not going to wait and have a multi-year process, because I think myself and probably most of the board were, even though I have 2 kids in the district, still surprised and shocked at some of the things and anecdotes that we heard from the community. And so we already have talked to administration about starting to take immediate actions in changing some of those policies, particularly about, I think the one that really stuck in my head was we went to outdoor recess and all the kids were still sitting around with their tablets. Like, that just should not happen at all. And so I think we are taking immediate action that will be implemented to stop things like that. We are, as a board, putting in a 1-year goal of doing a holistic look at our technology practice, but I don't think we are going to wait for that to make some of these changes to address some of the most egregious issues and stories that we've heard. So I think we can talk in a little bit more detail at maybe the next policy meeting about what some of those immediate changes are going to be while we take the holistic look. But I do think it's important to reiterate for folks that we are not sitting around and waiting for a multi-year process to occur, because we recognize the urgency of this. My son is in kindergarten now, so it is directly impacting my own kids, and I don't want it to impact any of our kids. So just that's kind of where I'm at. And I think, Dr. Howland, if you want, as the chair of policy, to put this on the next.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if it makes sense to have Mr. Obrecher with us for that, if that's possible, just to help us walk through, recognizing that, yes, there have been reports and there are concerns, and at the same time, we need to be cautious about unwinding, right, and dismantling things hastily. And I don't say that to mean, like drag our feet or anything like that. There needs to be a convening of the folks. But I think, it starts with a thoughtful conversation with Mr. Obrecher, and policy is a really adequate place or appropriate place for that.
Can I make one suggestion to that? Tonight, we have our board goals discussion. Public can comment before our discussion, and they can comment after our discussion. Can we facilitate something similar? If we're not going to have dialogue with the community, I just want to make sure.
When you're talking about the technology discussion?
Yeah. Whenever we put that on schedule.
The committees are up at the discretion of the committee chair of how to engage with the public. So we can definitely do that. I think as we have that holistic look as part of the goal, I think having a community engagement and bringing in, talking to some experts and certainly our educators about what they're seeing is a good idea and something that we should incorporate. So yes, and just on the goal note, because we're missing several and have one board member barely hanging on, we may postpone that discussion to the next meeting so that we don't have this discussion with only 5 board members here.
Okay, then I'll just, for the record, I'll just say what I have is June 1st is our next policy meeting. So for the public that wants to continue to be involved, June 1st.
Well, you don't even have to wait a full month to get the next board meeting.
Right around the corner. Mark your calendars now.
Curriculum on the 15th if they're not satisfied.
Before you close, can I ask a question?
A question? Sure.
It's a question.
A question.
Do we have an AI policy?
We have an administrative regulation that guides the use of AI.
Okay. Can I recommend that at the next policy meeting in conjunction, this would be a good time to look at that as well? Thank you.
Okay. Clearly an important topic and clearly not done, which is wonderful. So with that in mind, a student. Sure. Always hear from a student.
Okay. My name is Katerina Rodriguez, and I'm a 7th grader at the middle school. And I want to start by saying that this is an amazing school. I really love it here, and I think it is very good at teaching students, and it's just awesome. I wasn't always in the Phoenixville district. I joined in 3rd grade, and although I didn't know it at the time, it wasn't the best school. And now that I've come here and I've matured, I've realized that this is much better. So I've just wanted to say that, good job. But then also, there are some things that they did better in a way. When I was in kindergarten, I did not have access to any technology. Obviously, once COVID came and I was in 1st and 2nd grade, I had to go to, do online school, which affected everyone. But before that, I didn't have any access, and I would communicate with my peers and I would make friends, and honestly, it was some of the best years of my life. And I think just letting students have access to this at such an early age is not the best decision. Even when we did get computers, laptops, they were heavily restricted. Almost no games, no YouTube. And although I like to watch YouTube too, I know that it's not the best thing for me. So even in elementary school, YouTube was blocked. So I find it surprising that it's not blocked anymore. So I think this is just a crazy problem, and it really needs to be fixed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, with no other business, we will adjourn the meeting at 7:26. Next meeting is June 1st. See you all there.
We are now moving into library board candidate interviews prior to the start of the regular meeting.